day, the world moves on as it always has. Cities wake up, work begins, and life feels familiar. But beneath that sense of normality, something is shifting. The climate is changing, and the systems we rely on, energy, food, water, cities, finance, are under pressure in ways we're only beginning to understand. These changes don't live in reports or projections, they are already shaping people, livelihoods, and communities. We created the Climate Leadership Podcast so these challenges don't remain abstract or distant, but are explored through the people working inside these systems, making real decisions with real consequences, often without clear answers. This is not a space for fear, blame, or perfection. It's a space for honest conversations about what leadership looks like in a changing world. If you're listening, you're already part of that leadership. Let's begin the conversation.
Welcome to the Climate Leadership Podcast, where we explore the real systems, trade-offs, and leadership choices behind meaningful climate action. Today's episode focuses on one of the most powerful and often underestimated climate levers, which is how we manage land, food systems, and natural cycles. Our guest is Mr. Richard Bowe, Director of Regeneration Earth, an organization working directly with farmers, landowners, businesses, and individuals to restore soil, improve biodiversity, and reduce environmental impact through regenerative agriculture practices. Richard brings hands-on experience across regenerative farming, livestock system, soil improvement, biochar, and circular approaches to agriculture. In this conversation, we move beyond theory to discuss what regeneration looks like in practice, how livestock can support healthy ecosystems, where biochar fits realistically, and why circular systems are essential if agriculture is to shift from extraction to restoration. Thank you, Richard, for joining us today.
Thank you.
So I would like to start by if you can share something about yourself for our audience.
Okay, I'm a farmer's son, born in Yorkshire. Some may hold that against me. Working on farms all my life. Managed a massive farming in Essex, close to 4,000 acres, maximum inputs, and suddenly woke up one morning and thought there's got to be a better way than pouring chemicals and fertilizer onto our soils. They're degenerating, and some scientists say that we've only got about 70 harvests left before our soil is too far degraded to build back. And so Regeneration Earth is all about regenerating our earth. The clue's in the description.
Right, Richard. So let's get started. When we talk about regenerative farming, what does that actually look like on ground beyond the terminology?
Well, very simply, we want to improve the soil structure. The mycorrhizal fungi, it's all about having a balance of fungi and bacteria in order to work with the plants, with animals, to draw down. We've got over 70% nitrogen in our atmosphere. Why are we buying it in bags from halfway across the world to try and promote growth? So we're trying to reset that and make farmers look farm smarter, not harder. Make the soil work for you, and working livestock into a rotation, utilizing that, closing down the circular economy so you're dealing with your customers directly. They can come and see what farmers are doing on the farm, and it brings you back to nature. Nature thrives in these areas. Dung beetles are a fantastic opportunity, but without livestock, and people blame livestock on climate change. Years and years ago, 2,000 years ago, we were inundated with millions of wildebeest and bison. We didn't have climate change there. The clouds were still there, one thing or another. We stopped flying through the pandemic, and the sky cleared up. It wasn't the bison, it's not the cow, it's the how. and that's a strong point, is thinking about how to integrate livestock into a program using that fertilizer. For instance, in the Wye Valley, there is 80,000 tons of chicken manure that's full of nitrogen and phosphate that's no good in that area, but we're taking it away and we're burning it to produce power. Why aren't we utilizing that as a fertilizer with the nitrogen, the phosphate that's in there? Let's use that to promote our soil and grow it rather than importing carbon heavy nitrogen fertilizers.
Right, right, right. So, moving further, like agriculture is often highlighted as a major contributor to climate change. So, from your experience, where has the system gone wrong and what needs to change first?
Often agriculture does get the blame, but when you consider that our scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, scope 1 emissions are that move from manufacturers, be it tractors, machinery, chemicals, fertilizers, any input that we have is all booted up towards agriculture. Scope 3 emissions, if you're selling to supermarkets, their scope 3 emissions are all booted downhill. So agriculture often gets a bad press. And this is why we have a unique opportunity within agriculture to sequester carbon, to regenerate nature, all of the above, to get a more beneficial ecosystem, but more nutritional food. For instance, a tomato 20 years ago had 8 times the nutritional value of a tomato today.
Okay.
And this is all down to the soil. As a farmer, years gone by, it was a growing medium. I understand now more that it's more of an alive system. For instance, there is more microorganisms on a spoonful of well-structured soil than there are people in the world. And once you start to think about that, that just blows your mind.
Right, right, right. Right. So, Richard, I was thinking, I come from India, which is a heavily agriculture driven society, right? So, can you give me some sort of reference that how much agriculture is in the UK?
Where agriculture is let me start that again. Agriculture is a very political hot potato at the moment. We are fixated on our net zero journey, which is important. I understand, but we haven't got the weather in this country to support solar panels. So why are we making vast swathes of solar panel that's less than 30% effective? We're taking good agricultural land out of production in order to supply energy. We have other opportunities to produce power rather than using solar panels. And we're just so far away from what we're trying to do. Our general public have been fantastic while we've had the inheritance tax of understanding agriculture, but we're so far distant from our food source that we just don't understand it anymore. If I can use years ago when a farmer was picking potatoes in the field, used to have all of the housewives and children's coming up gleaning. We don't have that anymore. Food is still very cheap in this country, and we need to more focus that onto having good quality food, not mass produced. And in order for your subject with India, how can we as the Western world, we're always focusing on India and China and one thing or another, that they're not doing as much for the carbon and net zero aspirations. But why should we as the Western world tell them that they shouldn't be rearing chickens and chicken is no thing when we take chicken for granted in the Western world? So we can be very much hypocritical if we don't look at our own consumption.
Right, right. True, I understand that. Richard, I was also thinking, like, is there a lobbying, like you mentioned about the solar panel, which are taking up the agriculture land. So do you think there is some kind of a lobbying going on with the government?
Yes, there's an awful lot of lobbying on our doorstep. There's vast swathes of solar panels being sort of planned on the Romney Marsh. There's huge outcry of mainly inhabitants of that area.
Mm-hmm.
But take into consideration, farming is on its knees. We are getting paid now £160 a tonne for wheat. That is the same price as we were getting 20 years ago.
Okay.
Diesel, machinery, fertilizers and everything else has all gone up in price,
Mm-hmm.
but the price back to the farmer has decreased.
Right.
And when I went into my local superstore and their meal deal has gone up by 25 pence. And I said, why is that?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, oh, that is the price of wheat. Well, the farmers certainly aren't getting the price of wheat.
Okay, right.
We're not seeing that fed back. And everybody's got to make money in business, and I 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Farmers are very unique, as though we're planting a crop of wheat in the September, October, and we won't be harvesting that for 9 months.
Okay.
And then we're marketing it ourselves. We haven't got a marketing department. So we're told what price we're going to get. Once it's loaded onto a lorry, it goes off, and we can be penalised on several things, even though a price has been agreed. Mm-hmm. And this is where it falls down. In France, they have a system where they get a fair price linked to the cost of production. Okay. And I think that it's very important that we need to be considering that in the UK. Otherwise, we're going to lose our farmers. Right. And they're not only farmers producing food, but they're custodians of the countryside.
Absolutely. Right. Makes sense. Okay, so moving forward, soil health, which is a very important topic. So soil health sits at the center of agriculture. Why is soil such a critical yet frequently overlooked part of climate mitigation and resilience?
Soil is a huge sink of carbon. Every time we cultivate it, move it, strip it, whatever, we are releasing carbon into the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. Carbon is essential for crop growth, but it is also a very good storage facility deep in the soil for storing carbon. Mm-hmm. So if we can get our soil to draw down the carbon in the atmosphere, we start reaching or losing the carbon in the atmosphere, which has got to help global warming.
So it is kind of a carbon sink which can be utilized.
Yeah, and it's more effective than harvesting carbon mechanically. Right. I mean, for instance, if you're harvesting mechanically carbon, often that is trading value-wise at over £1,000 a tonne. Well, if you were able to split that market into UK soil, and admittedly, there's certain protocols because it's very easily released and one thing or another. You would transform British agriculture and get more farmers interested in actually doing positive things with the atmosphere. But it's such a wild west at the moment. Carbon trading is very much the wild west, and we need a standard, a global standard, to be able to trade the same carbon through MRV protocols, measure report verification, and standards.
Okay, right. So when I was in the US, I heard this term of carbon trading and how companies who are putting a lot of carbon in the atmosphere, they get carbon certificates from another company, and these kind of things are going on.
Oh, it really is. I mean, for example, an airline can just offset their carbon. We've got Bill Gates and BlackRock in the UK trying to buy vast swathes of land up just so they can say we're net zero. It's complete greenwashing.
Right.
Let's get a standard where everybody's on the same playing field. Absolutely. And again, supermarkets, millers and everything else are batting their Scope 3 emissions down to the farmers. Why shouldn't the farmers have a commodity, as in carbon, to sell into an open market?
Absolutely, yeah, makes sense. It's a very valid question. Yeah. So, moving forward to livestock. So, livestock is one of the most debated issue in climate discussions. How do regenerative livestock systems differ from industrial models, and where can livestock add real environmental value?
Livestock are unique in so far that they can, um, when they're at the right stocking density, to be able to enhance an environment, a grazing strategy. They're very unique. And where else can we? I can't eat grass. I can't go out and mow my lawn and then take it home and have it as a salad. It doesn't work that way. And there's certain areas within the country that you can't have crops. So we need something to graze them. You look at milk. Milk is a very good um, ratio from water to milk. You're about 12 litres of water to every litre of milk. For example, oat milk is nearly 100 litres of water per litre of milk. For apricots, it's nearly 150 litres of water per litre of milk. And we can utilise the byproduct of livestock as a fertiliser.
Right.
And that is what stimulates the soil in order to all the good stuff, mycorrhizal fungi, all the fungi, bacteria, all to work together to make the soil reproduce and want to grow and then draw down on the atmosphere.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like a complete cycle.
Draw down the nitrogen that's in our environment, pull down and put into the soil rather than having man-made fertilizers that the introduction of fertilizer into the world was a fantastic. You can 3 times the volume of crop by using fertilizer. But we're far cleverer than that now. We've got some amazing soil scientists out there. We need to start looking at using less fertilizer, but being able to use what animal products and one thing or another to enhance what we're trying to achieve.
Right. So, Richard, I was just thinking that when the fertilizers initially were introduced in the world, so tell me something about that. Like during that time, we need more food, so we wanted to produce more, and that is why the fertilizers came into being.
I believe it was by accident. I've been told this story, and this is how I understand it. During World War II, Winston Churchill thought that the war was going to continue for a few more years. So we stockpiled arms. The principal ingredient of bombs is ammonium nitrate.
Right.
Post-war, the MOD, so we've got a huge problem with these bombs, said to the land agents, what do we do with this?
Yeah.
And so our addiction to fertilizer, that's what I've been told, and that's my take on it. But farmers are inherently lazy. I can say that. I am one. If we can open a bottle or a bag and pour it onto the field and it works, and we know it works 3 times over, why wouldn't you do it?
Right.
It's like taking your car to a car wash.
Yeah.
You can stay at home and do it manually and get the satisfaction of doing it yourself, or you just turn up, pay your money, and you've got a clean car.
True.
And that's the same scenario with agriculture.
I see. Right. And over the years, we have come to realize and see the negative impact of those fertilizers.
Some farmers are looking, and there's always been a fraternity in agriculture with organic. What we're promoting with regenerative agriculture is a hybrid between industrial intensive agriculture and organic, which is kind of a hybrid in between. Reduction in insecticides. Why put insecticides onto your soil when you're trying to enhance the insect life? There isn't a one that targets aphids and leaves something else alone. They just kill everything. And the same with fungicides. Right. If you're wanting to promote your fungal activity, why put fungicides onto your seed and then put them in the soil? It doesn't make sense.
Right. Makes sense, yeah. So, Richard, talking about biochar. So, biochar is getting and gaining attention as a climate and soil solution. So, how does it work in practice, and where does it make the most sense within regenerative systems?
We always get asked, biochar is a wonderful new product. We are so far behind the game. The Incas were using this some 2,000 years ago. When they were clearing areas of forest, they would then primitively create biochar within holes in the soil within, as a smokeless burn. They would then take this biochar and defecate into buckets and mix the biochar in. And they still, 2,000 years on, they still have some of the richest, most fertile soil in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just playing catch up. We've just typically burnt bonfires of hedge trimmings and trees in a massive pile in the field. And when I was managing a farm, I looked at these areas. They always work down a lot better. There's raw carbon getting into the soil. But the carbon from biochar needs to be activated.
Okay.
For instance, a gram of well structured, good, high quality biochar has 2 to 3,000 square meters of surface area. So if you put that biochar into the soil, it will lock up nutrients.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what you do to that, you can put it in running water, it won't let go until the mycorrhizal fungi get in there and actually access it like a key and lock. So what we're doing, we're either feeding it to livestock or composting it with livestock byproducts or digestate from AD plants, in order then that this is locked in with the nutrients. So it's only accessible when the mycorrhizal fungi can access it. And so it's also locking on to those nutrients rather than them ending up in the ditches when we have rainfall events.
Right, right. Okay. So it holds the soil, the nutrients together.
It's like a sponge. It sucks all of the nutrients up, and the only time you can access that is through mycorrhizal fungi
Okay.
actually getting into the biochar and drawing the nutrients out.
I see. I see. Okay. 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 Right. So if there's a lot of rain, it won't wash away and move. Okay.
Yeah, and also it's a unique source of carbon. We've done several MRV protocols on biochar, and biochar is some of the greatest carbon value that you can get. We've done the work leaving a log in the forest, or letting it break down and the methane and the carbon that's released, or turning it into biochar. And we can hand on heart say that we are creating in around 2.25 tons of CO2, or locking up 2.25 tons of CO2 from a ton of biochar.
Okay. Understood. So, Richard, many climate solutions are discussed in isolation. How important it is to integrate farming practices, livestock, and tools like biochar into a whole system approach.
It's very important because one little element of your farm, your livestock or your arable, whichever it might be, is important to interlock them together so you're being beneficial to your livestock guts. Years ago, before we had all of the different pharmaceuticals that we have, if we had upset tummy, what was the first thing you did? You chewed on a bit of charcoal. Biochar, apart from different temperatures that we use in scrape biochar, essentially it's the same. So we should be feeding this to our livestock to promote gut health.
Okay. Okay.
And that's a unique way of activating the biochar and then applying it to land so the nutrients are locked up to when the nutrients are able to use.
Right, right, right. So, Richard, moving forward, we talk a lot about circular economy these days. What does a truly circular agriculture system looks like, and how does it reduce waste and emissions?
Circular economy is something that we should look more into. I work closely with a couple of AD plants, and they take waste fruit and veg from producers and supermarkets and manufacturers. They put that through what we call a concrete cow to produce methane. That methane is then captured to produce electricity through engines to produce electricity. The byproduct of that is a fertilizer, and by putting the right fulvic and humic acids into the digestate, it's a good nitrogen source to grow crops. Okay. So we can then produce crops or feed for livestock in order then for it to go back into the food system, rather than just these vast areas of waste being put into landfill or not being used.
Right.
The beneficial part of AD is anaerobic digestion, is that we need to have some crops to work alongside those, but we can eat those crops if push comes to shove and we have a shortage.
Right. So this is like a complete circular system, which you just shared with us.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And producing electricity.
Yeah, we are using it as an energy source also.
Yeah, and it's a good fertilizer that's very low on carbon, being transported around the world. We don't produce fertilizer in the UK anymore, so everything has to be imported.
I see. So, Richard, like you shared this circular process, so we can do this again and again?
Yep, totally. There's more waste in the UK than there are people to take it.
Understood.
And so anaerobic digestion is a fantastic facility. There are several well-run AD plants around the country, and they do a sterling job of taking our waste and turning it into a product for fertilizer, but also electricity. That energy is something that we need, but that we could do more.
Okay, understood. So transitioning to regenerative practices can feel risky for farmers. What are the main barriers do you see, and how can those risks be managed?
The biggest risk for farmers is the first thing they see, and we've been at several regenerative shows where I'm a regenerative farmer. All right, what are you doing? I bought a brand new drill, £150,000 drill, and that means I'm on that journey. The biggest thing that farmers can do is go to their local hardware supplier and buy a spade and go and see what's happening in their soil. They've got to earn the right to be able to go down a regenerative route. And that's the biggest part, is understanding your soil. A lot of people say, oh, I've got this soil, it's very heavy and one thing another. They're not introducing organic matter. They're not introducing a natural bug, humic and fulvic acids, in order to get the soil working and more friable. With digestate, without treated digestate, we kill the worms, and worms are basically the engineers of the soil. If we don't have worms, we're not starting from somewhere. We've got to get worms back into the soil. Over cultivation, over chemical, over fertilizer. And it takes years. We're talking 7 or 8 years to reap the benefits from going from intensive to regenerative. And so you have to do it slowly but surely in order to not have that massive reduction in yield. And it's looking at areas that the 3 hectare field that's right over by the village that doesn't yield very much. Let's look at natural projects within that area to promote nature, rather than trying to push a yield out of it. Let's just look at how we can focus that. And there's several schemes coming in the future, and has been in the past, that opens that up to nature recovery.
Right. Richard, I was thinking about finance in this sector. So suppose I want to start something in the regenerative farming space. Is it easier for me to get finance from government loans or banks?
No. It's we're fighting. There's a lot of talk about nature strategies, businesses paying for nature recovery and one thing or another. Less so finances, looking at things such as biochar to promote soil health. That is, like I said, farming's on its knees at the moment. There isn't the money involved in farming. For instance, probably 6, 7 years ago, we were getting close to £300 a tonne for wheat. Now we're half that price. Potatoes the same. And we've got to really buckle under and look after our agriculture. Without it, we have nobody looking after the land. You have nobody looking after the soil. And it's very good that these massive companies are looking back at buying huge swathes of land, but you've got to maintain it. And livestock or cropping, we need to feed ourselves very quickly. We can't import our food to get us out of trouble.
Mm-hmm. Right. Richard, I was doing some kind of a research on this beer companies like Heineken, Carlsberg. They have a strong relationship with the agriculture side because they need their raw material from there. So, do you see any, is this going in the positive direction? Is it a good step from these big organizations?
Yeah, there's not a lot at the moment coming back towards agriculture, but like you say, it will be a very credible thing that people buying the barley and the wheat for production of beer or whiskey to be able to say where we bought the grains from, we've also offset our carbon there.
Yes.
And having that as a targeted area, we work with a couple of hop producers that we could very simply do the same. Already the viticulture industry are doing things to become net zero, but that's a very small fragment of large producers that are coming out and saying, look, we are net zero. But we've got to be guardian proof. We can't afford to say we are net zero when we forget the small print. There was a producer that came along and said that he had the first net zero egg, which is a fantastic achievement in itself, but had forgotten the transport to the supermarket. So when the Guardian readers put their head above the parapet, it's not a net zero egg at all, but that's what we strive for, to be absolutely Guardian reader proof.
Right. So from a leadership and business perspective, how should companies engage with regenerative agriculture without falling into offsetting and greenwashing, like you were mentioning?
It's more the consumer, the housewife, the house husband, to want to go to their local farm and see the need for buying fresh, nutritious produce that they know where it's come from. Bringing that back to a local farm shop, a local hub. We produce some of the best food in the world, some of the best standards, but we're able with new commercial outlets to import less quality food that are using hormone replacement and one thing or another to import beef into the country, lamb, eggs, chicken that aren't at the standard that our UK farmers strive to produce. And they've been enforced by supermarkets and also government to produce this fine food that we can readily get. We need to be proud of that and not bury ourselves, and also realise that it should be a fair price to agriculture as well as the consumer. I was in a supermarket and there was discount vegetables for, I think one was doing it for 6p for potatoes and Brussels sprouts. We're told that Brussels sprouts there's a shortage this year, but we're doing it for 6p, and you bet your bottom dollar that it won't be the supermarkets absorbing that. It'll be down to the farmers, and that's where we need to start looking at how our whole structure is behaved. People, yes, they see whacking great big combines and whacking great big machines going across the field. But there's less people wanting to be involved in this. It's not a 9 till 5 job. It is a lot of hours and a lot of stress, a lot of bank money being lent and one thing and another just for these farmers to stay afloat.
Right.
And we need to be proud of our agriculture. And that means our residents need to get behind agriculture.
Okay. So finally, Richard, looking ahead, what gives you the most optimism about the future of agriculture, and what role must organization like Regeneration Earth play in scaling the real impact?
Like I keep saying, agriculture is on its knees, and when you're at the bottom, you can only look at the stars. So the stars must come closer, and whether that is through nature recovery or carbon trading, but we've got to lose this greenwashing. That's holding us back. Energy is another area, and Regeneration Earth is here to support, but we're very much on facts. We're not here to greenwash. We're not here to brush the outlying things under the carpet. We want facts. We want MRVs. We want statements so we can get behind it and push it towards industry. And that way industry understands what they can do to reduce their carbon footprint as well by having areas and also the natural well-being. If you can take your supply chain to a farm area that are doing stuff and you can link your carbon offsetting to that area, you can plant trees in a certain area. So not only you bring your supply chain there, but you also bring your employees and your families of employees to do work there and have a barbecue. Come and see the countryside. Quite often, those areas of land, people see it's a factory. It's off limits. Well, hold on a minute. We have an infrastructure of footpaths in order to go out and see the countryside. Farmers need to be adaptive in that to show what's happening, where their food is grown, and be proud of the fact. Let's do something positive.
Absolutely. So I'm getting a feeling that not many people are visiting farms anymore. They are going more towards the city. Is it the case?
Very much so. I mean, I do a lot of work out in the fields and one thing another, cultivation. When I see somebody on a footpath, I quite often go and have a chat to them because quite a lot of the livestock manures that we use have got a pungent smell to them. So I go and explain what we're doing. Well, if we weren't doing this product would be in landfill. So let's utilize that, and the light bulb goes on. You're right. We should be using this rather than importing oil-based fertilizers around the world. Let's do something positive. And when I explain that the chicken manure is going into burners to be burnt for electricity, I'm sorry, that's just something that is wrong. We with the production of biochar, I know I'm skipping back a couple of steps, but biochar, many of the new biochar retorts have a production of electricity, so they can have a byproduct of electricity. And you're talking 1,200, 1,400 degrees of heat. Well, if we started utilising them next to hospitals and manufacturing, so we can utilise the heat from green waste products that are now just being composted, we then have areas of biochar being created to put into land. I know several people that listen to me talk heard me go on about roadside verges. There were several projects in the past to harvest roadside verges. It's in a trap of nitrogen circles. So the grass is cut once, maybe twice a year, left on the ground, it rots down, produces nitrogen, and then the grass grows, and it just goes round and round and round. What happens if we were to harvest that grass, take it away, dry it, turn it into biochar, put it back on the verges so it locks the nutrients up? We then have different flora and fauna on our roadside verges that's growing at a slower rate. So then we don't have to cut it as often. We have wildflowers and things on the side of our motorway that can encourage insects on the biggest area, not only motorways, but railways. We've got a fantastic opportunity to be able to use those corridors to link up with insect. Insect life is the key, the way forward. And if we ignore that along with soil health, we're in peril.
Absolutely, absolutely. I can feel the passion which you bring. So thank you. Thanks a lot for giving us your time and joining us today, and for sharing such practical and grounded insights. This conversation is a reminder that climate leadership is not only about innovation and policy, it's also about how we care for land, food systems, and the natural processes that sustain livelihood. For our listeners, regenerative farming, livestock system, biochar, and circular approaches are not standalone ideas. Together, they offer a path away from extractive practices towards a long term resilience and restoration. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll be back soon with more conversations. Until then, take care and have a nice day. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.